So hi everybody, welcome to Tech Talks IncubateIND. I'm your host for the interview, Latika from IncubateIND, and we have Santeri with us, who's the CEO of TeacherGaming LLC, right? And Santeri has been known for some major acquisitions that he has done in the past. Some major...
Well, at least sort of midpoint, yeah.
Yeah. And we have him with us for this Tech Talk video. And Santeri, so what's your story and the making of the Santeri?
So do you want that 1 minute or that 1 hour presentation? Maybe 1 minute.
As interesting as it can be.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was a gamer. I still play a lot of games. What happened, I ended up going to a teacher school. I don't know if that was a good idea, but what happened was that I started my first company already when I was there. The first company was about tutoring. It was a miserable failure. To be honest, not a single hour of tutoring was ever sold. Well, but then I started playing a game called Minecraft with my students. And what happened was that a lot of teachers get excited about that. We actually turned that into a business with Mojang, of course, the makers of Minecraft, and then also a couple other folks, our CTO Alexia, and then another teacher from the United States that had basically the hype around him. So I was doing the business development with Mojang, building the product with Alexi, and then at the same time, Joel from New York was building the hype around this. So we were like the perfect troika to build this. And ultimately, we were getting 500 schools a month without doing anything. It was like completely this crazy viral thing. And I think we were about 20,000 schools, close to that at least 15,000 in the United States alone, when Microsoft then first acquired Minecraft, and then they acquired also Minecraft EDU. Well, already, back in the days, but nowadays, I think I'm involved in 8 or 9 different companies. Whether that's gaming, toys, edtech, or those three areas that I'm involved, that I know something about. And some of these companies are still looking, for the good thing. They are good teams, but not just cracking it just yet. There are a couple of companies that have been really in a growth stage at the moment. They are, ramping up their first millions in revenue, and the growth pace looks really nice. And then, of course, my day job at this company that I think I just mentioned, that is taking my everyday work. And luckily, I get to work with schools and games and in a very playful manner. So, of course, that's like the sweet spot of what I should be doing with my time.
So is gamification only relevant to learning, or is it beyond that?
Well, I would say that today, where games are used mostly are just, for the loot, meaning like for enjoying ourselves, free time, free fun. But then I would say that the real challenge is that kids are spending, or us, adults, myself, we are spending a lot of time playing games, and that time is not really used in any productive manner. Meaning that I think that we have 2 opportunities and 2 big challenges. And one is raising our children, of course. Kids are spending tremendous time on watching at screen. Are parents really connected to what happens there? We should be much better connected at least. Also, the education front in many countries, many places, even Finland, are just like, okay, games, really? And then the only way they address games in the education is just don't play that much games. And that's like just throwing gasoline into the fire. It's just like, kids are just like, you don't understand us, and that's it. And you basically lost the connection. The raising the children, of course, we should be more active with what our kids are doing. But then the other thing is, of course, the academic side, because games tend to be like this extreme good place to learn skills. With skills, I mean like problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, coming up with creative problem solutions and collaboration. Now, of course, if we want to introduce that curriculum, the concepts as well, then as a teacher, we can't only play games, we also need to look into, okay, we are building the city builder game. If people that watch this, they know SimCity, for example. So let's take SimCity. My goals building my city might be that I want to make as much money as possible with my casinos. But then at the same time, we could look into a more of a teacher-facilitated activity where let's try to make as carbon neutral city as possible. So now the students are not only, learning those skills by following their own goals, but they would also look at, okay, how can we actually make these decisions carbon neutral way? So there are, I would say, those two big areas. And at the same time, that games are such a huge part of our culture. It's a huge part of children's culture. And maybe the minimum viable thing that a teacher can do is not to judge, is to just okay, you are playing games, so which game are you playing? So what are you doing in the game? What other games are you playing? Just being interested, because that's just opens up the Pandora's box, kids start to talk, and then you connect with that child. And of course, in India, if the circumstances are that you have 50 students in your class, it's not very easy to do that with all your students. But I mean, especially those typically boys that struggle in school, play a lot of games. I was one of those kids. It would be wonderful if somebody would just come to me and be curious about what I play. But what happened was that my teachers were just looking at that boy will never become anything because he's only playing games. So far I've been sort of proving them wrong, and I've been planning on doing that in the future as well.
Nice. So since we're talking about games, how different is game-based learning from gamification?
Well, now we are going to very a serious research, clarifying the concepts. Well, I would say gamification tends to be sort of gamifying what is not originally a game. What typically happens is we, for example, give points for math activities or stuff like that. What that for me makes is that we move the motivation to learn to collecting points, which as a purist, I think that it's sort of the wrong way to do it. But at the same time, I look at this and I feel like maybe the gamification is not the answer, but rather sort of the game design. And maybe I feel like game-based learning, on the other hand, tends to refer to us taking a game and we learn from that game, whatever that game is. But really, kids and middle school age, let's say 9 to 13-year-olds, they're the ones that really get excited about games, about playful elements. But then when we move to, for example, universities or even work life, people tend to think about games as, okay, I mean, I'm here to work, I have busy schedule, and you ask me to play games, come on. So maybe the game design should be taken into account where we embed, let's say a game-like elements and game design-like elements into the work life, the routines where you have short-term goals, mid-term goals, and then ultimately long-term goals. And these basically help you motivate, these help you to coordinate your work. They also help you to target your attention to maybe fields that you are not that good at just yet, and maybe practice some of the skills that are needed. That could then be valuable data for some of the managers or decision makers, and of course valuable for the decision makers themselves to practice leadership skills. And maybe one part of this process would be them trying to, better their score or whatever that might be from what they get feedback from their, their staff. But yeah, maybe that's a very elaborate answer, but I would avoid the gamification part and more trust that the game design and really the excitement that games provide, it carries and for far.
Carries an encouragement.
Yeah.
So what's your strategy as far as the demography of India is concerned?
Well, so far, what I've seen is that two major differences in India, generalizing it quite a lot here, but still, is that India, so the ecosystem of schools tends to be slightly disconnected from the Western side, and also what this means that it requires more lead work and meeting the people on site, where many schools in the United States, for example, a lot of the teachers are making their decisions with the materials that they use. So they can come to our site and okay, I like this, let's try it. Okay, I like this really much, let's buy it. So, of course, we need to convince the managers and the teachers, but still, it can happen organically on the browser, on online. And what happened with Minecraft was basically this: we didn't need to sell; people just came and bought it. So in India, this one thing is of the personal meeting and convincing the management. That the management, of course, has a lot to say about what goes into the curriculum. But another thing is that even in the West, but also in India, the teachers are not very game savvy. And the challenges are that if you don't play games yourselves, it can be sort of a scary media to begin with. So of course that side requires a lot of help from us, requires a lot of help from peers, and of course investment into training and professional development. I do think that it pays off ultimately. Now, one of our advantages is that we really don't have any production costs because we are collecting all these contents and IPs from third-party game developers and putting the licenses into the same product. We have like a technology that basically breaks that open into analytics and into curriculum content. And so it's very easy for us to scale our portfolio. And at the same time, when it comes to the demographics here in India, we are very able with our price point to also target the very sort of low-income schools. And I think that when it comes to these low-income schools, they are definitely the ones that benefit the most, because I think that, well, saying it very bluntly, but many times the quality of education and also what is taught there is sort of the lowest quality, and this can really create some very powerful learning experiences that could lead into some child, whatever the background is, to get very excited about rocket science, and then go to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is available for everyone. You can, have a cheapest phone or go to an internet cafe or borrow your teacher's phone, and then you can basically browse everything and learn everything about rocket science. So really that type of deep engagement is what we are trying to build, not build like dictionaries, because we all have like 100 times better dictionary in our pocket than we are. So now we need the skills to apply those information, and of course now the game is that place for anyone to basically be able to apply concepts that could never be possible to apply without them.
So you mean to say learning games play a vital role in the learning curve of a student, basically?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So you mean to say that games play a vital role in the learning curve of the student?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I'm not proposing that, hey, let's only play games at school. No. It can be 2-3 hours a week that you use games, or maybe it's homework to enrich that learning experience. So absolutely. At the same time, I think that overall what is needed is sort of a change in attitude towards learning. That learning currently has a massive negative stigma on it. And games, as being the most exciting media available, can benefit that stigma in a way of melting it down. And at the same time, I feel like a lot of kids, they feel sort of bad that they are playing games, although they are not, because everybody's saying that it's a waste of time, which it can be. Of course, there are people that have problems with gaming too much. I mean, there are problems with people doing anything. Like even sports, people do it too much and they break their stuff and they break themselves physically, mentally. So the same way with games, we also hope that their attitude towards games and the quality of gaming, so the games that they look after, the games that they play, would be more beneficial and more sort of brain-boggling rather than something that are just like,
so
spend my time. I'm just,
So what are the key elements of a well-designed game? I mean, we're getting into the tech part of it, but yes.
Whoa, that's a tough question. What I would say very generally, and I say this maybe more from somebody who is trying to make something from the effort education, that wants to put in game design, rather than trying to teach game designers to do their work with digital games, because I'm not an expert in that. But I would say that everything starts from a story. Everything starts from sort of a context. That the context and the story. Well, the story, maybe this is a good example. If you look at Hollywood movie, a Bollywood movie, there are people that die, and then you are like, oh my God, tears coming down. And then there are people that die and nobody cares. So there is the story that makes some people and some characters very important. And so, of course, we want to create, through the story, that type of connection with the people or the characters that we work with inside the game. Then the second thing is that there is the context. Like, for example, if we want to teach physics, why don't we create a context like, building your own rockets or something like that as a quick example.
So you just mentioned that you were getting queries, schools were signing up. Was this happening with the sales team, or you were not having a sales team? I mean, you guys were doing it all by yourself. And if yes, you were doing it by yourself, then what was the hack behind it?
I think we, at the very general level, we jumped the bandwagon of a very successful thing, of course. So Minecraft was becoming this viral phenomena. There was close to 100 million players for Minecraft, very close to when we finished. But really, I think that we did... one thing that we did from the very beginning was that we are still getting a lot of invites to talk about games and learning, and how we positioned us was not the salespeople of Minecraft. It was more about the educators that started with Minecraft and now look what happened, and all the impact and all the data that we were able to collect and all the interesting stories from teachers from around the world. So I think I was going to maybe 30 events talking about this every single year. And really, of course, those, and my partner was doing that as well, and some other folks in our company was doing that as well. So of course, those converted into a lot of interest. And what was nice about this was that in most cases, the organizer paid our trip to visit and give that keynote. Now, another thing was that we invested a lot of time to evangelists. And how that happened was that, of course, there were some of our early adopter users. And I think whenever you are creating like a high engagement product, and that's not about for the kids in our case, only for the teachers as well. We heard a lot of stories about teachers that they were like, I was really quitting this crappy job, now I'm back because this is so amazing. And really, that type of feedback, then we invited those teachers to a Slack channel. We were using HipChat back in the days, but Slack nowadays. And now the early adopter teachers, they still are coming there, and we are having conversations with them. They can give us feedback, and they sort of felt like we are the Minecraft VDU family. We are the pillars of the community. And of course, I mean, these guys got a lot of attention. They were the curriculum designers for all the teachers around them. They were building a lot of content. And really, they became the local superstars in the education space. A lot of them set up businesses that were doing trainings, and it just went from like one synapse to another without us spending anything on the AdWords. And what we were doing, we were just like basically listening to like all the feedback, all of those. We were implementing those into the system, and all the time. There were more and more people that were saying like, okay, this is this is so cool. They just put this in. This is my favorite thing. Something that also eventually happened once more through this sort of Synapse network was that some of the teachers started creating like this super high quality content for our system. And that was ultimately something where people came for that content because they knew about it and not necessarily the product anymore. Because they were like, I know I want this content and I need this Minecraft to run it. So I need this. But yeah, we were doing tours. We were basically doing like giving back to the community. We were going around just having workshops with students, having workshops with teachers, all kinds of like different arrangements. So basically you can't say that we didn't do sales at all. What we did was our sales were hidden into these workshops and this giving back type of movement and into these evangelists being cultivated. And of course, some of these evangelists became district leaders and all of that. So yeah, I think that's sort of the basic ingredients of how that virality really picked off. And of course, we had 100 million players around the world that were saying that my favorite game is now also for education, so we should be using that. But I think that why this story is also relevant for many businesses is that if there is something that can be applied, like, a lot of these disruptive companies that you have been looking at is basically connecting two value chains, meaning like private housing and hotels, meaning Airbnb, private cars, been utilized in the taxi service, and this is like one app that connects to this. I think that education and other aspects also call for innovative solutions where something that is already highly successful, like the games that we work with, we have like 150 million players for the games. So I mean, these are very useful with a bit of extra tools around them for another value chain. And now we can license the games very easily to the other one, and I'm sure that similar models can work for very many things, that where you can benefit something that somebody else created in somewhere else, and then you know that actually there is already a huge audience for this, and they might actually as well utilize or spread the word for that.
Nice. So one key takeaway that you would want our viewers who are watching this or who could see this to take away, they'll be game makers, they'll be tech enthusiasts, so they'll be product developers. So one key takeaway that you would want them to take away after this interview, that this is what they need to focus upon, whether it's business development, whether it's product development, one thing that you would want them to take away.
Well, maybe I'll give you the very Finnish advice. So this is from the Finnish startup ecosystem, saying hello to the Indian startup ecosystem, and the message and the advice would be fail fast. And what that means is that money comes and goes. In Finland, of course, we have social security systems and all that, so it's easier to take risk for Finnish companies. But at the same time, I'm sure that a lot of Indian young people or old people, they have some savings, they can take risk as well, and I hope that there are friends, families that can back them up. But so money basically is something that people are thinking like how much money I'm losing. But really, one resource is what you will not get more is time, and maybe in the future, but not now. And really, if you feel like you are hitting your head against the wall for 3-6 months and you just don't see that, how can I make this happen? Just, fail. Just call it a failure, do something else, don't waste your time. And I think that I learned, and I was lucky that during my first attempt doing business, I realized this in, let's say, 4 months, that this will not work, let me not waste any more time on this. So just, be very, even if you have invested already time, money, just, realize you're a failure, fail fast, and do something else.
Yeah. So that was Santeri with us. And we will now take your leave, and hopefully we'll get back to you with more tech videos and more inspiration for you on the IncubateIND front. Thank you.
Thank you.